Revenge with Karen.
Who changed the vendor codes in 18CA? I asked, holding up a contract that looked like it had been faxed from a circus. Grant didn't even turn around, just sipped his protein shake and said, "Laura, you've been here too long. Try trusting the system for once." That was the moment I knew the floor beneath me wasn't shifting. It was being sawed out by a man who'd never touched a spreadsheet without breaking it. 3 weeks into Grant's reign as our new CEO, the break room had turned into a funeral home for dignity. Desks vanished. My department was reimagined. And me? I got moved from overseeing compliance strategy to a role called internal operations alignment, which I'm pretty sure means I'm now in charge of labeling printer trays and nodding in meetings I'm not invited to. If you've ever watched a legacy firm hand the keys to the founder's failson with all the subtlety of a demolition derby, you know the vibe. Grant strutted in like he'd invented logistics, said words like synergy with his whole chest, told everyone he was going to modernize accountability. Translation: fire the veterans, hire influencers, and hope the stock price floats on vibes. Some folks drank the Kool-Aid. I brewed coffee and made backups. 14 years I gave this company. Not loud years, not flashy, but effective. I was the one who made sure vendor contracts actually matched state regs, who caught bad clauses before they nuked compliance, who stayed late when systems crashed and fixed them before morning. Grant didn't care. To him, I was a legacy relic. One of his actual emails said that. Legacy. Relic. Like I came stapled to a museum wall. Even had the gall to say I should empower younger voices. I nearly choked on my yogurt. This is coming from a guy who thought Clause 7.2 was a Pokemon. By the second week, I started hearing whispers in the hall. The new consultant, a 26-year-old with a TikTok resume, was getting handed contracts I used to sign off on. My name vanished from recurring meetings. Grant told me it was time I stepped back to observe the bigger picture. What bigger picture? The man couldn't spell procurement if it weren't embroidered on someone's polo. Honestly, I wouldn't even be telling this story if not for what happened next. And before I go deeper down this rabbit hole of corporate gaslighting and revenge served ice cold, let me ask just one thing. If you've ever worked under someone who thinks being loud is the same as being right, hit that subscribe button and throw a like our way. It's free, it helps a ton. It keeps stories like this rolling out of HR purgatory and into your headphones. Now, back to the chaos. Grant started deleting things, real subtle like old compliance logs, migrated to cloud, vendor history archived. He loved buzzwords, especially when they covered his tracks. Thing is, I never trusted clouds. I printed, I filed, I encrypted. See, I wasn't planning revenge. I'm not the drop a bomb and walk away in slow motion type. I'm the type that hands you a folder and watches you open it in front of the board. But we weren't there yet. At this stage, I was still the good soldier, showing up, taking notes, pretending not to notice my desk had been moved closer to the supply closet. But inside, something hardened. I watched him high-five interns like we were a frat house. Watched him brag about automated compliance checks that I knew were just Google Sheets with colorful fonts. Was cutting corners like it was a sport. The final straw? He stood up in an all-staff meeting when he forgot to mute me from and said, "We're burying the old guard under their own paperwork." And people laughed. They laughed like it was a roast. I stared at my screen, heart thudding, jaw locked. I closed the laptop, picked up a pen, started labeling my personal flash drives, because I knew the moment was coming. The moment where someone, probably a regulator, probably pissed, would find a thread. And when they tugged, I wanted them to see my fingerprints, not my silence. I wasn't angry, not yet, I was preparing. And that's always been the difference between me and Grant. He thought power was about the room, the volume, the chair. I knew it was about the receipts. The first time I noticed something was off, it was subtle. Too subtle for anyone without 14 years of muscle memory in contract language. Clause 4.1.2 was missing the indemnity qualifier. Clause 5.7 referenced a termination clause that didn't exist. The dates, backdated by 2 weeks. All of it hidden under the glow of a brand new vendor onboarding doc, signed off by the intern now calling himself Director of Data-Driven Synergies. I'd laugh, but it wouldn't come out clean. Vendor Contract 18 SIA had always been a tricky third-party freight consolidator, small but high volume and legally finicky because of a weird state tax stipulation. I'd written half the compliance language myself after their COO's dog got loose during onboarding and chewed through 2 paper copies in the middle of our lobby. The original PDF had my initials in the metadata, but the one circulating now, clean as a bone. No history, no metadata, and the indemnity clause was gone. I brought it up, cautiously, our new Agile decision stream, which used to be the Thursday compliance huddle, until Grant slapped a sticker on it and turned it into a TED talk without the chairs. I asked if someone had revised 18CA. Grant grinned. Don't you trust our new automation tools? I wanted to ask if his automation tool had a law degree. Instead, I said nothing. I just smiled and hit print. Both versions, mine and the one scrubbed clean. Toner was low and left a smudge over clause 7.2, which somehow made the whole thing feel more sinister. The next day, IT sent a cheerful memo. Reminder, manual backups and offline storage are not aligned with our green initiative. Right, because the planet was dying from paper, not from six-figure fraud hiding behind Dropbox folders. I started noticing more discrepancies. Small ones at first. A clause skipped here. Contract signed before the vendor was even fully onboarded. I checked our archive, and shock, entire versions were missing. Just gone, not marked as revised, not stored in our versioning tool. Gone. I asked Jeline from procurement if she'd seen the latest copy of 18CA. She blinked and said, "Oh, Grant's team said we're moving to real-time smart contracting. Everything's dynamic now. Dynamic. As in, you'll never find the original when someone sues." Still, played it cool, played it silent. But I started building my own sidecar of records, all time-stamped and cross-referenced with emails that no one else had thought to delete. You don't spend 14 years cleaning up other people's messes without learning to catalog the blood spatter. And then came the hallway moment. I was passing the glass conference room, once mine to lead, now repurposed into a brainstorming jungle with 3 succulents and a Nerf hoop. Grant stood inside with his little coterie of junior execs, sipping canned cold brew and barking like he'd just discovered sarcasm. "She's still clinging to her little binders," he said, not even lowering his voice. "Let her. We'll bury the old guard under their own paperwork." They all laughed. That laugh hit harder than I expected. Not because I didn't see it coming, but because it confirmed what I feared. This wasn't a case of misunderstanding. It was a deliberate purge. Narrative rewrite. Grant didn't just want me out. He wanted me rewritten as obsolete, outdated, expendable. I walked past them like I hadn't heard a thing. But that was the moment I shifted. I stopped thinking like an employee and started thinking like a witness. I pulled every contract revision I could find, cross-referenced every date stamp, pulled the metadata. I even printed 2 different versions of the same file, just to feel the paper in my hand and remind myself what was real. And then I did the thing no one expected. I stopped pushing, stopped raising concerns, stopped offering to fix what was breaking. Let the rot grow visible. Let them relax. Because the deeper the lie, the harder it cracks when the light hits. They wanted to bury the old guard? Fine. I'd bring the receipts to the wake. Found out I was excluded from quarterly prep the same way I find out the vending machine's broken, by trying to use it and realizing someone had jammed gum in the slot. The compliance folder I'd managed for 6 straight years, color-coded, versioned, cross-referenced, bulletproof, was gone from the drive. Just gone. Replaced with a Google sheet titled Q3 Alignment Matrix Final. It had 1 tab. It was blank. I pinged Greg from finance. No response. Pinged Jeline. Nada. Finally messaged IT, assuming maybe access got reset. Instead, I got a chirpy reply. "Oh, Grant said your team's being repurposed under the new consultant-led structure. Thought you were looped in. Should I resend the invite to Friday's DIC Summit?" I stared at the screen. DIC Summit? I clicked the invite link. There it was. Data Integrity Consultant Summit, led by Aiden M. Aiden, 26-year-old spreadsheet influencer with a minor in digital wellness, who once tried to plug an HDMI cable into an Ethernet port. Aiden was now leading compliance prep. A kid who thought Clause 14 was a TikTok challenge was now hosting Q and a sessions on regulatory risk. I didn't reply. Just sat there, still as a statue, watching this weird Silicon Valley cosplay play out in real time. They didn't just want me out of the loop, wanted me erased, ghosted, like I was the embarrassing ex who still had a toothbrush in the drawer. I sent a calm email to HR asking for clarification. No response. Next day, I got called in for casual coffee with Meredith, the same HR rep who once sobbed during our ethics training video. She smiled like a crocodile. "Laura, I know change is hard. You've been with us a long time, and your legacy here is so valuable. We've heard some feedback that your tone lately has been resistant. A little fixed mindset why? I blinked. Fixed mindset why? She leaned in. I just want to gently encourage you to reconsider your role here. Ask yourself, are you adapting? Are you building bridges or clinging to routines that no longer serve the team? I didn't speak, just nodded, because I knew what this was. They'd flipped the script. I was no longer the asset. I was the problem. The fossil. Obstruction in their agile pathway to scalable excellence. It was almost funny, in a gallows humor kind of way. All those late nights, all the quiet saves, all the times I covered someone else's oversight without asking for credit, reduced now to a pep talk about emotional agility over an $8 scone. Back at my desk, now positioned conveniently by the printer, as if to remind me where I belonged, I stared at my inbox, watching the threads pile up. All the things I used to own, now redirected to people who hadn't even learned what a compliance hold notice was. But here's the thing about being sidelined. It gives you time. Time to read, time to notice, time to wait. That's when the call came, blocked number. I don't usually answer those, but something in my gut said pick up. Laura Cross, the voice said, male, steady, professional. Yes, this is Darren Kincaid, lead auditor on the Breyer & Co. file. I was hoping you could clarify something regarding a 2019 vendor transaction. It appears the onboarding documents predate the company's official registration. We tried confirming internally, but we're not getting a straight answer. I didn't say anything for a second. I just smiled, because now the game had changed. They thought ghosting me was the power move, but the ghost just got a call from the living, and she had every receipt. The cafe was quiet, tucked between a dry cleaner and a vape shop, the kind of place you only found if you were looking for solitude or secrets. I chose it for both. I sat at the back near the window, binder in my bag, flash drive, zipped into the inner pocket of my coat. No makeup, no blazer, just a windbreaker and old jeans, so I wouldn't be recognized. Grant's inner circle had eyes everywhere. Well, they thought they did. You'd be amazed how invisible you become when you're not in the Slack channel anymore. At 9:17 sharp, a tall man in a pressed navy coat walked in and scanned the room. No clipboard, no briefcase. Just that look, the quiet calm of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. Miss Cross, he said, approaching my table. Mr. Kincaid, I replied. We shook hands like strangers who had nothing to hide and everything to discuss. I slid the binder over slowly. Cream-colored, thick tabs labeled by contract number, appendices flagged in red. I didn't bring accusations, I said. Just data. He nodded, opened the cover, and started reading. We didn't talk for 6 minutes. He flipped pages like he'd been trained to catch forgeries under fluorescent light. When he hit Appendix D, I saw his brow tighten. At page 47, he paused. This has the founder's signature. I nodded. It had 6 months before the vendor was legally registered. The contract, it's tied to references a clause that didn't exist in our policies at the time. I checked. His thumb hovered over the date again. That signature, it's not even digital, it's scanned. Someone went out of their way to make it look official, but there's no audit trail. There was, I said, until it disappeared. He closed the binder halfway, still looking at that one page. Do you know how long this has been circulating? I shrugged, hard to say. The original files were scrubbed from the server 3 weeks ago. The one they uploaded in its place was renamed Final 2 Final PDF. Subtle. He gave a dry chuckle, not amused, just impressed by the incompetence. And you have the originals on this? I pulled out the flash drive and handed it to him across the table. Every revision, every metadata timestamp, cross-referenced with vendor onboarding logs and internal emails. Also find screenshots of Slack messages between Grant and his consultant team. They mention adjusting legacy files to streamline compliance optics. That's the phrase they used. Kincaid didn't ask why I had it. He just pocketed the drive like it was a hand grenade with the pin halfway out. You're not here to blow this up, are you? I met his gaze evenly. No, I'm not here to save myself either. I'm here because they're going to make me the fall girl. I won't let that stick. He leaned back, studying me like a chessboard he hadn't expected to lose. You've done your homework. 14 years gives you time to learn the terrain. He tapped the binder once. I'll need to expand the scope of the audit, quietly. Can you keep this meeting off the record for now? I nodded. You were never here. I was never here. I just came for coffee. He stood. Laura, you may have just saved more than your own skin. I didn't reply. I just watched him walk out, the binder tucked tight under his arm like it was radioactive. Back in my car, I sat in the dark, engine off, fingers curled around the steering wheel. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. This wasn't a win. It wasn't even a checkmate. This was the moment in chess where you move your queen not to take the king, but to force them to expose theirs. I didn't want Grant fired. I wanted the truth to come out before they could write me out of the story. Let the audit speak. Let the facts surface. Let the signatures, real and fabricated, stand next to each other and let the silence between them do the talking. By the time I pulled out of the lot, my heart had stopped racing. Because now I wasn't the one being watched. Now they were. By Monday morning, the silence had weight. Not the peaceful kind, like Sunday coffee or falling snow. The charged, metallic kind, like the breath you hold just before a crash. My inbox was down. No notifications, no invites, just a single automated message from IT. Access temporarily restricted pending departmental realignment review. Right, and I'm the Queen of England. I rebooted twice, thinking maybe it was a glitch. Tried logging into the compliance archive. Blocked. Even my personal folder, the one with 14 years of notes, audit trail flags, and non-critical legacy documentation, locked behind a red bar that read insufficient permissions. It didn't feel like punishment. It felt like erasure. I took the elevator up to the 4th floor. My badge still worked. Funny how they forget that part when they're trying to ghost you in daylight. The light blinked green, and the doors opened like nothing had changed. But everything had. The walls of the compliance pod had been repainted. My framed certificate from the 2012 Ethics and Risk Summit. Gone. My desk. Still there, but stripped. Even the chair was different, new, squeaky, and too short. And then I saw it. My nameplate, once bolted clean and silver beside the frosted glass divider, had been replaced. Same mount, new name, Aiden M. Data Integrity Lead. They didn't even bother peeling the old one off completely. Could still see the edges of my last name poking out beneath the cheap adhesive. I stood there for a full minute, unreadable. Rage coiled low in my chest, cold and quiet. No tears, no raised voice, just the growing hum of something tectonic. I didn't flinch, didn't touch the door, just turned and walked to the HR suite. "Hi, Meredith," I said, peering through the glass door. Her assistant jumped a little. "She's in A, she'll want to see me." 5 minutes later, Meredith stepped out, pastel blouse already damp under the arms. She smiled like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. "Laura, I was just going to reach out. There's been some confusion. We've been informed there was a breach of confidentiality regarding external communications, and we're looking into the matter. In the meantime, IT has initiated a routine precautionary lockout while we clarify access levels and document flow." I raised one brow. "The rumor is I shared internal IP?" She blinked. "No one's used that exact phrasing, but someone's been saying it. Silence. The kind that screams confirmation." Meredith shuffled some papers. "It's not disciplinary, it's procedural. We just need to understand who said what, to whom, and under what context. I hope you understand." I understood perfectly. Grant got spooked. He couldn't fire me without a paper trail, so he did what cowards always do, manufactured smoke and hoped someone else would light the match. I stood. "You'll let me know when I'm allowed to do my job again?" She gave a brittle smile, of course. Back in the hallway, I passed Jeline, who looked away a beat too fast. Someone had clearly whispered something. Probably that I was unstable, untrustworthy, dangerous. Funny, I hadn't changed a bit. The only thing different was now they knew I was watching. I went back to my desk, or what used to be my desk, sat in the new chair, opened a legal pad from my purse, and began taking notes. Not digital, not cloud-based, just pen and paper, every glance, every whisper, every access denial, every missing email. I knew what they were doing. They were making a file on me, so I started making one on them. 1 page per name. They wanted a war of attrition? Fine. But I was the one holding the ledger. Tuesday, 7:43 a.m. I composed one email. Short, surgical, nothing dramatic. Just the kind of internal check-in that, if printed later in a courtroom, would look painfully innocent. Subject, clarification on review procedure body. "Hi all, could someone please advise on the protocol for reviewing Appendix D under Clause 7.2? Thank you, Laura, that was it. No passive aggression. No loaded questions. Just a grenade tucked into a bouquet." I sent it to legal, CC'd compliance at Briarco Internal. Waited, no response. Not after 30 minutes, not after 2 hours, not even a polite thanks will circle back. From the paralegal who used to send me Peanuts cartoons on Fridays. Just silence, dense, prickly silence. By noon, the walls started breathing funny. There was a subtle shift in the air when people walked past my old pod. Aiden darted into a side room after spotting me. Jeline kept tapping her keyboard like she was coding the blockchain instead of formatting spreadsheets. And Grant? Well, Grant wasn't on the floor at all. He'd locked himself in the founder's glass office. Yes, the one with the quote stenciled on the wall. Trust isn't given. It's audited. Oh, the irony. Then came the Slack ping. Company-wide all-hands executive sync at 3:00 p.m. attendance mandatory topic. Q3 operational integrity review, which is corporate speak for. Someone lit a match, and now we're trying to figure out what's burning. I attended, of course I did. Badge still worked, and they hadn't told me not to. Plus, it's harder to write someone out of history when she's sitting in the damn room. The executive conference table was full, founder at the head, Grant next to him, legal on one side, HR and finance on the other. Aiden sat 2 seats away from me, staring at his lap like it had answers. The founder cleared his throat. We've received some inquiries regarding legacy vendor documentation. It's come to our attention that several onboarding processes may have included non-standard protocol. We're here to review, scope. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Hair messy, tie uneven, that vague look of a man who just realized his yacht might be a crime scene. Grant said nothing. His face was tight, jaw clenched, kept opening and closing a pen like it was a detonator. I watched the door. At 3:12, it opened, and in walked Darren Kincaid, lead auditor, same navy coat, same unreadable face. He carried a black leather folio that looked too slim to hold what I knew it did. No one had told us they were coming, which meant Grant hadn't been told, which meant legal hadn't been told, which meant someone higher up had sent for them, quietly. Grant sat up straighter, forcing a smirk. Didn't expect to see you so soon, Darren. Kincaid smiled without teeth. Audit calendars fluid this quarter. We figured since Appendix D was already flagged, we'd pop in and walk through it live. Silence dropped like a guillotine. The founder slowly turned toward Grant. Appendix D? Grant stammered. It's from the onboarding files. Just a legacy artifact. We're looking into it. Kincaid opened the folio, slid out one sheet of paper, placed it gently in front of the founder. Clause 7.2 doesn't apply to legacy vendors under 2019 protocol, which makes this form, dated and signed in early 2019, rather odd. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I just watched Grant's hand twitch near his temple, fingers brushing sweat off skin that had gone about 3 shades paler than when the meeting started. Legal shifted in their seats. Finance pulled out their phones. Char leaned forward, suddenly remembering their role involved people. The founder said nothing, just stared at the document like it had grown fangs. Kincaid folded his hands calmly. We'll walk through it line by line. Might take a few hours, might take a few days. Grant swallowed hard. The founder stood. Clear your calendars. And just like that, the room scattered. Nobody spoke to me. Nobody asked why I was there. But no one asked me to leave either. In corporate land, sometimes silence is the first sign they know exactly what you did, and they know you were right. They made me sit in the back. Same boardroom, same temperature-controlled tension. But this time, instead of being ghosted or ignored, I was invited. Not to speak, of course. Not to contribute, just to witness. A formality. A silent prop in the play Grant thought he was directing. The long glass table was surrounded, legal, finance, HR. Even the founder, perched at the head with his lips pressed so tight they'd turned the color of printer paper. They'd brought in 2 outside council reps too, white-collar specialists, judging by the shoes and the 1,000-yard stare. Darren Kincaid sat near the far end. Calm, binder closed, hands folded, and Grant, he paced. Didn't sit, jacket off. Sleeves rolled up like he thought it made him look decisive instead of desperate. His forehead glistened under the recessed lighting. No one spoke for a minute. Then Grant cleared his throat, dramatically. Like he was about to deliver the Gettysburg Address, except the teleprompter was rage, and the words were paranoia. I'd like to address the elephant in the room, he started, voice a little too loud. We've been made aware that unauthorized personnel, here he gestured toward me without looking directly, have been engaging in private meetings with external auditors. Without legal present, without executive clearance. He paused, waiting for gasps that didn't come. I'm talking about Laura Cross, he snapped, finally turning toward me. We saw you meeting with the auditors. That's insubordination. That's a breach of internal protocol. A few heads turned. Some looked confused, others cautious. The founder didn't look up, just stared at the polished tabletop like it might offer a better outcome if he glared hard enough. I didn't respond. I didn't even blink. folded my hands in my lap, and sat still, composed. Not cowed, not humiliated. I knew what this was. Grant thought he was throwing a grenade, but he didn't realize I'd handed the pin to someone else hours ago. Then came the pivot. All eyes shifted to Darren. He didn't rush, didn't react. Just opened the black binder in front of him like it contained the world's calmest execution order. Miss Cross didn't share anything outside her rights as an employee, he said. Voice steady, she responded to a private request for clarification, which she fulfilled using documented internal files. Files, I should add, that should have never been altered in the first place. Grant scoffed. She was interfering, undermining leadership. Darren turned a page. What she was doing was protecting the company from liability. This, he tapped the open binder, is a signed onboarding contract dated February 2019. It contains a signature from the founder, timestamped before the vendor's corporate existence. The language references internal compliance clauses that didn't exist in the 2019 handbook. In short, fabricated. A pin could have dropped and set off the fire alarm. Grant opened his mouth, closed it again. The founder finally spoke, voice dry. Where did this document come from? Darren didn't blink. From the digital archive labeled Final V4 Signed DocX, uploaded by a user with the email Grant Breyer at internal. Last modified 7 weeks ago. The room tipped sideways. HR paled, legal shifted. Finance let out a sharp exhale like they'd been holding it since breakfast. Grant turned beet red. There's context. That version was for internal review. The actual contract, Darren interrupted, flipping to another tab. It's deleted from your legacy server access at 11:42 p.m. on the night of June 12th. Logs show a user logged in using admin credentials and scrubbed the metadata before replacing the file. He paused. We've traced the admin credentials to your executive device. Silence. No one looked at me. They didn't have to. The script had flipped, and now Grant was the ghost in the room. A loud one, a dangerous one, but fading fast. The founder finally leaned forward, eyes locked on Grant. We'll break here, he said quietly. Legal will continue with Darren. Grant, stay behind. I stood, smoothed my skirt, and walked out, still silent, not because I had nothing to say, but because I didn't need to say a word. The binder did all the talking. The room smelled like citrus cleaner and nerves. I wasn't supposed to be in this meeting. I hadn't been officially reinstated, hadn't received a calendar invite, and even had my badge fully reactivated. But when legal added me to the required list at the last minute, no one questioned it. Not even Grant. He was too busy pretending his collar wasn't choking him. The founder sat at the head of the table again, flanked by 2 men in tailored charcoal suits from the outside law firm. Darren Kincaid, still calm as the eye of a hurricane, was already seated. His black binder rested on the table like a coffin. Room had that eerie stillness, the kind you only get in corporate when everyone knows someone's about to lose their career. Grant leaned back, arms folded, trying to look unfazed. He tapped his fingers against the polished table in a rhythm that betrayed him. Fast, uneven, sweaty palms hitting walnut veneer. Darren didn't look at him. He turned to the founder, voice smooth and flat. Page 6, sir. The room didn't breathe. The founder opened the binder slowly, like it might bite. The pages whispered as he flipped them. Then he stopped, his brow furrowed. His hand hovered over the paper like he didn't quite believe what he was seeing. And then the color drained from his face, dead white. He stared at the document like it had just sentenced him to something, because it had. This, he started, voice rasping. This is dated 6 months before the vendor existed. Kincaid nodded once. And this is my signature. Another nod. No one said a word, not even Grant. His pen tapping stopped. His eyes locked on the founder like he could will him to unsee it. Legal leaned forward. We'll need to pause this meeting, the senior counsel interrupted, already standing. His voice had dropped into a register reserved for panic management and public scandals. Effective immediately. We require executive review. The outside attorneys began quietly packing their notepads. The founder didn't move, just kept staring at the page, jaw set, breathing shallow. For a moment, he looked older than I'd ever seen him. Not tired, wounded. Like he realized, too late, the cost of passing his company to a man who knew how to manage perception but not the truth. Because the signature was real. But it was pasted. The date, forged, the clause it referred to, didn't exist in 2019. And all of it, every clean margin, every calculated comma, been created to cover a decision made in a panic, in a moment Grant thought no one would ever see again. Except I kept receipts. I didn't flinch, didn't speak. I sat in the corner of the room with my hands folded, lips sealed, expression unreadable. The trap they set for me hadn't just failed, it had gone off beneath them. And now they were the ones covered in ash. HR looked shell-shocked. One of the finance guys muttered something about chain of custody. Hayden stared at the wall like he wished it would open and swallow him. And Grant's face had gone from pink to red to a kind of high-gloss maroon. He opened his mouth once, then shut it. His breathing was shallow, the sound of his own unraveling. The founder finally pushed the binder away, hands trembling slightly. "Everyone out," he said. "No thank yous. No eye contact, just 3 words." Everyone obeyed. I stood last slowly, walked past Grant. He didn't meet my eyes. He didn't have to. I wasn't angry anymore. That would have been a waste of victory. He tried to turn me into a scapegoat, but instead I became the fuse. I left without a word. No grand monologue, no final zinger, no long stare over the shoulder. Just a quiet walk from the boardroom to the elevator, the faint click of my heels echoing down the corridor. The same corridor I'd walked for 14 years, late nights, early mornings, during blizzards and budget freezes. But this time, I didn't look back. The floor was silent as I passed through. Phones buzzed, heads were down. Even the receptionist avoided eye contact, like everyone had collectively decided I was radioactive now, too dangerous to nod at, too principled to lie about. Funny. All I'd ever done was my job. And now I was the one walking away, while the ones who played games with the truth were unraveling behind frosted glass. The time I reached the parking lot, the sky was that hazy gray that never commits to rain. I got in my car, locked the doors, and just breathed. No tears, no victory dance, just exhale. 3 hours later, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes after that, an email hit my personal inbox. Subject: potential opportunity. Hi, Laura. We heard about what happened over at Breyer through our industry contacts. Few of us on the compliance team here at Lanning and Price were impressed, to say the least. Would you be open to a confidential conversation about a leadership role? We'd love to hear your perspective. I stared at it for a long time, the cursor hovering over reply. I didn't answer yet. I wasn't ready. Not because I didn't want to move forward, but because I needed to close the door on this chapter properly. The next day, Grant was officially suspended, pending internal review. The founder issued a company-wide statement announcing his indefinite leave to focus on personal matters. HR sent a formal apology letter, legalese wrapped in guilt, ending with, "We regret any stress or disruption you may have experienced during recent events." It felt like getting a Band-Aid after surviving a car crash. I never replied. Instead, I took a long weekend. Slept late. Ate a sandwich on a porch with no Slack notifications. I let myself be bored for the first time in years. And then, a week later, a package arrived. Brown paper, no return label, just my name handwritten in blue ink. Inside, a leather-bound binder, clean, professional. The same one Darren Kincaid had used in the boardroom. I opened it slowly, flipping through the tabs, every document, every email, every timestamp, every clause they'd tried to erase. Tucked inside the cover was a sticky note. "You saved more than the company. You saved the truth." That's when it hit me. They never expected anyone to pay attention. They thought silence meant complicity. They thought they could bury the truth under jargon, behind paywalls and permissions and pretty PowerPoints. But all it took was someone willing to remember, and a well-placed binder. I didn't need to slam a door on my way out. They already heard it close. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.